So recently, I created a video in which I talked about the subject of entering Samadhi. I discussed various states of Samadhi and explored the experience of entering and residing in Samadhi. After posting it, I was asked the question, what is the relationship between Samadhi and enlightenment? So this is important because Samadhi needs to do something. It needs to benefit us in some way, otherwise there's not much point to it. So it's actually really useful to look at this relationship between Samadhi and the end game of the spiritual path, which is enlightenment. If you did not see the video on entering Samadhi, then click on the channel name below this video and you'll see all the videos in my channel and you can watch it there. So the relationship between Samadhi and enlightenment is not straightforward, but I want to try and describe it in as simple a way as possible. We can begin to look at this topic by thinking about some of the qualities or characteristics of enlightenment. For the sake of simplicity, I want to look at 9 qualities of enlightenment. We can think about the process of enlightenment in terms of cultivating the qualities of peace, equanimity, bliss, joy, surrender, the falling away of personal desires, liberation, unity, and love. Some of the Sanskrit and Pali words used for these things would be Shanti, Upekkha, Ananda, Mudita, Yajna, Nirvana, Moksha, Kaivalya, and Metta. So the question would be, what does Samadhi have to do with all of these things, all of these qualities of enlightenment? Initially, it appears that Samadhi is not necessarily accompanied by all of these qualities, or even by any of these qualities. So why is it considered to be such an important aspect of the spiritual path? If you study yogic teachings, you will hear some teachers even say that Samadhi is the same thing as enlightenment. So towards the end of this video, we'll look at why they might say that, and what that means. So as I mentioned in the first video, Samadhi is a state of meditative absorption. It is a state where pure awareness comes to the foreground, and everything else goes to the background. We become bathed or immersed in pure awareness and silence. It's not technically correct to say that we are bathed or immersed in pure awareness, because we are that pure awareness. This experience is usually very peaceful, but it's not always peaceful. When it first begins to happen, it can actually be quite frightening. When we suddenly find ourselves temporarily not identified with the objects of the mind, this can be unsettling, because that's how we usually get our confirmation of existence and how we understand who we are. So initially this can lead to fear arising, but once we've overcome that initial fear, then Samadhi is usually accompanied by a profound sense of peace. So peace, or Shanti, is the first of the qualities of enlightenment that I mentioned earlier. And when we experience the peace of our own nature on a regular basis, that begins to become a new way of functioning in the world that will spill over into our everyday life. Equanimity will accompany this experience of bliss when we're in Samadhi. Everything is seen as being equal. Nothing is attractive or unattractive. Nothing is seen as good or bad, right or wrong. There is no process of judging taking place. Everything is simply seen as happening within stillness and silence, happening within pure awareness. So this is the second quality of enlightenment that I mentioned, Upekkha. And this will also begin to spill over into our daily life. Then, over time, and through regular entry into Samadhi, the peace will deepen into bliss and joy. Another term for enlightenment in yoga is Satchitananda, or existence, consciousness, bliss. So we're cultivating the bliss aspect, which is a quality of pure consciousness. Ananda was the third quality I mentioned. At this stage, things become a bit more subtle. I mentioned the term Yajna as a quality of enlightenment. This is a term used a lot in Vedanta, the early spiritual teachings of India. The term Yajna means sacrifice or surrender, and the things that are surrendered are our attachments and fears. Attachments to things like ideas or beliefs or views. In the state of Samadhi, these attachments and fears simply fall away of their own accord. There's nothing we need to do. Attachments and fears are seen to be not relevant to our own being, to our own existence. They're simply things that arise and pass away in the mind, and in fact do not touch us or affect us in any way. Personal desires are also seen to be things that simply arise and pass away, and are not relevant to who we are. And the more time we spend in Samadhi, and the deeper our Samadhi is, the more these things will fall away. So those are the fifth and sixth characteristics of enlightenment that I mentioned before. Yajna, or surrender, and Nirvana, the falling away of personal desires and clinging. Nirvana literally means without flame, and by extension, without the burning created by attachment and clinging. So then there are three more qualities that I mentioned: liberation, unity, and love, or moksha, kaivalya, and metta, to use the Sanskrit and Pali terms. Liberation is probably the easiest of the three to understand. If we are not free, because we are constantly caught up with the objects of the mind and the senses, then spending time absorbed in pure awareness beyond these objects will lessen our entanglement with them, and over time lead to the complete disentanglement with them, which is moksha or liberation. Unity arises as a deeper aspect of yajna or surrender. Initially, the surrender that occurs in Samadhi is the surrender of our desires and aversions, our beliefs and ideas. But as our Samadhi deepens, surrender expands to include the idea of separation. The idea that anything is separate from anything else is actually just another idea in the mind. We begin to see that everything is simply one thing, dancing with itself. And this is kaivalya, or unity. And the last characteristic I mentioned was love, or metta, a pure love for all beings. So how can simply abiding in Samadhi lead to the experience of love for all beings? So this is related to kaivalya, or unity. When we begin to see ourselves as not being separate from others, then we love them just as we love ourselves, and we take care of them just as we take care of ourselves. So that is how Samadhi can cultivate all of the qualities of enlightenment, and why this experience is given such importance in spiritual teachings. So I mentioned earlier that some teachers will say that Samadhi and enlightenment are the same thing. This is because the experience of Samadhi is not limited to practice sessions. We can also begin to enter Samadhi simply during the day, whatever we are doing. These moments of Samadhi are referred to as Sahaja Samadhi, or spontaneously or naturally arising Samadhi. And these moments of naturally arising Samadhi will be accompanied by some or all of the qualities of enlightenment. And over time, these moments of Sahaja Samadhi will expand until they become continuous. This is why you will sometimes hear people say that Samadhi and enlightenment are the same thing, because eventually they are. So basically, Samadhi is an essential stage on the path to liberation, initially gradually cultivating the qualities of enlightenment, and eventually becoming a continuous aspect of our life.